Hey nerdy knitters, it's Tanya here. Time for our monthly nerdy knitting podcast where we settle in with our favorite beverages and our knitting and chat about what's on our knitting needles. Now before we get to what's on the needles or off the needles, I like to start with just a little bit of news and updates and things like that. And the first thing would be thank you for the super thanks. If you're not sure what super thanks is, if you look below the video, you'll see different options like download, save, share, and there's one called thanks where you can make a monetary donation. And we had one this past week from Christine, and I just wanted to thank you for that, Christine. And I really appreciate the extra support. I appreciate everybody who hangs out with me, who comes and watches the videos and leaves really thoughtful comments. And I just love all of your feedback and the things you do. And I just wanted to thank you for that little bit of extra support as well. Christine, thanks. And we've got two polls going on right now. If you want to weigh in on those, I'll put links for them down below. One of them is about the age you started knitting, and I'll share the results right now. And I thought it was really interesting. I know a lot of people who learned to knit when they were really young, but it appears that most of the people who watch here have only started knitting in the past few years, which I think is remarkable and wonderful. And I guess a lot of people did start knitting over COVID and all of those things that were happening with that. People had more time to try new things, and obviously a lot of them started knitting. So I just thought it was really neat that the knitting age for people here tends to be younger than, at least a lot of the people I know who've been knitting for years and years and years. So I just thought that was neat. So you can weigh in and share how long you've been knitting in that poll. And the other poll was about shawls. Shawls are really popular knitting patterns. And I was just curious to know how many people who hang out here knit shawls and how many they've knit. And you can go click over and enter that poll and see the results for that one. And I was a bit surprised. I figured there'd be more shawl knitters, but I'm guessing they are. They just don't watch the videos on this channel, and you probably knit other things. So I'm curious to know what other things you love to knit besides shawls. I just know that those are super popular. I'm guessing because it's not like a sweater or a cardigan where you have to be really careful about fit to make sure it's going to fit properly. Shawls, you don't have to be so concerned with that. So it's a bit easier to knit one and not worry too much about the size that it ends up being. Unless you're really being cautious with how much yarn you're using, then you want to be a little more careful, I guess. And I'm making good progress on my knitting design course. If you've watched past episodes, I've mentioned this. I'm taking the Knitting Guild Association's certified knitwear designer. I can't remember the full title of it. The course for the knitwear designer. It's while I was waiting for my level 3 of the Master Hand Knitting program to come back, which it's back, by the way, but we'll share about that in a bit. So I'm working on the design course. It's split into 3 modules. Like you work on the first one, you submit your work just by email, and then the instructor goes through the materials and then emails you back with your results and a letter about the things you might need to work on. I had one thing I had to fix and resubmit. And then she'll give you the materials for the next module when you're ready to start. Because you have to purchase each one separately. So when you're ready to purchase that one, then you've got the link and you can get it right away or wait. I took a few weeks off just to let my brain have a break, but then I started the second module, and that's the one I've been working on. And this one is, for me, it's more difficult. The first one was all about the idea for a design for something that you'd want to knit. This one is more about the math, especially for things like sweaters or grading patterns where you create a spreadsheet to do all of the math for you, basically. So I've got a basic spreadsheet done, and that one, just that part of the program, she walks you through how to do it, but then has more resources. So it's really up to you to dive in and figure out how to do that. And there are other courses you can take on grading, but I didn't find them necessary. I found lots of blog posts and some YouTube videos, and that got me going enough that I was able to really, it was over the course of a week or two where I was studying how to do spreadsheets for knitwear design. And I think I've got a fairly good grasp of it. And I'm sure as I use the spreadsheet to design that I'll refine it as I go. But it was a lot of mental work. But I did use the spreadsheet for a hat that I'm designing. I figured I would test it out. It's going to be in 3 sizes, which is not that many. So I was able to like figure out the math on my own without having to use a spreadsheet. But using the spreadsheet, it gives me a chance to try it out and test it and make sure I know how to use it. I know how to use all those different functions and formulas. There's quite a few you can use with knitwear design. If you've ever used any sort of like Excel or Google Sheets, is that what it is? That's what I'm using. I'm using the Google version. I don't have Excel. And I think there's a version on Mac too. I don't use that one either, but they're all pretty much the same, I think, spreadsheet wise. You've got all these functions and formulas. So it's learning those that I think that is the hardest part. So I took lots of notes to guide me so I would know like what formula to use in what situation. And it's a process, but I'm worked through it. I've got my basic spreadsheet made, and I think that will be the foundation for future designs. I'll be able to grade my own knitting patterns instead of hiring other people to do it for me, which is a nice thing. Still, I will have to definitely still hire a tech editor to go through patterns and make sure everything's correct. But this part of the process was something I'd really wanted to learn, and I'm proud that I was able to get that sorted and really figure it out. So there's still more for this module I haven't finished. I've got a bunch of questions I need to answer. I think those are pretty much done. There's a few fairly simple exercises that you have to do. And then there's 2 patterns that you have to write. You don't actually have to knit the thing. You just have to write the patterns. And they're graded for different sizes. There's stipulations for both of them that you have to follow. So I still have those to work on. Sort of taking a break right now because the grading and all of the math stuff, there was a lot of that with the questions. How to just different things like rates of increase and decrease and different shaping and how to use different math formulas for that. And that was really taxing on the brain. So I need a bit of a break. But then I still have the 2 design things left to do, but I'm not in a super big hurry to get there. I've done quite a lot, and I think we have 6 months for each module, so I've got plenty of time. I've only been working for about a month on this one, so I can take a bit of a break, which is good because my master hand knitting level 3 just came back, and when I got the email that they were ready to send it and they sent me the tracking, like I kept checking like every day, refreshing to see where it was. It was stuck at the border because I'm in Canada. It was stuck at the border for about a week, which was a pain, of course. I wanted it to be here. And then I wondered if I'd have to end up paying duty or customs tax on it, which was really annoying because it costs a lot to mail in, and I own everything in that box to begin with, so I would not want to have to pay customs. I didn't have to, thank goodness. I never know when that's going to happen, when I'll end up having to pay customs tax on something. But it's back, and I actually did better than I thought I would. The 2 biggies, of course you have your projects with every level. With level 1, it's a mitten. With level 2, you have like a Fair Isle wristlet and an Argyle sock and a vest. And in this level, it's a stranded knit tam and an Aran cable knit sweater. I could have reversed it. You have your choice about the stitch patterns for the final 2 projects. You can choose an Aran hat and a stranded colorwork sweater. That was the way I chose for mine. So the big thing for anybody who takes this course is they want their projects to pass because it's not fun having to re-knit a whole sweater. Thankfully, mine passed. I was very happy about that. In the level 2, I had to resubmit 2 of my 2 or just 1. The wristlet for sure. I can't remember if I had to resubmit the sock. I don't think so. I'm not sure. But with level 3, I did pretty good. Level 1, I had a bit to resubmit twice. I had to resubmit twice. Like I had to resubmit a few things once, and then I had to resubmit one more thing because it just still wasn't good enough. And then with level 2, I had a lot, I think 9 swatches. It was quite a lot. It was almost half of them that I had to redo in one of the projects and some of the writing. With level 3, I only have 4 swatches to resubmit. That was surprising. I thought I would have a lot more. I do have both of the patterns that went along with my final projects because in level 3, you design and knit the projects from your own mind. You create them yourself from scratch and you design the pattern. So you write the pattern to go along with what you've designed. So I've got lots of things that I need to correct in those, and they send you a whole letter because you send your box and you've got a binder and your project and you put them all in a box and mail them off. And I did that in April. So I'm just getting it back in July. And you get all of your things back, and along with that you get a letter, and this is multiple pages, quite long. I have a page number on here. 9 pages this letter is, so not short. They walk through, they have like a little blurb at the beginning about how you did overall, and then I think this is new. It's sort of like a chart format where each thing is in a little chart here, so it's easy to see what you need to redo, what you don't need to redo. All of my book reviews and reports and magazine reviews, those are all accepted. But there are notes, like the things I did good, things I could have added, like both of my design book reviews, they have a note that I could have added, like the price, the binding, the physical dimensions of the book, things like that. Like my report, they also have nice comments as well. Skillful comparison of the differences and similarities between Fair Isle and Norwegian sweaters, blah, 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 blah. So they have nice notes about the things you've done well. And then they also have notes about things that could have been improved. And then each one will tell you if it's been accepted, which means you don't have to do anything, you're good. You don't have to think about that again. Or things that you have to resubmit. And there are, with each level, you have swatches, usually 19 swatches, some more, some less in each level. And you also have some projects to do. And with each of those swatches and each of those projects, you have what they call, with the swatches, a swatch information sheet. And for some of them, you just have to, you'll list the yarn you used, the needle sizes you used, and they have it laid out like how you're supposed to do that. So I would just make one, like a template, and then copy it for each one. So I used Patons Classic Wool Worsted almost all of the time. So I put that right on the template so I didn't have to rewrite that every single time. And then, so you have your yarn, your needle size, and then references. So if it tells you, okay, this swatch, you have to work an SSK and a knit two together on the very first level, that was in the first level, then you have to list 2 references that correspond with how you worked that method. Like if you do a knit two together, you would write down, Vogue Knitting or whatever other reference books or websites that you used. You had 2 of them, and they had to agree with what was in your swatch, and they had to agree with each other. So there's a lot of, like, you might know how to do a knit two together, but now this course really shows you how to research. Like it doesn't cover absolutely every little minute detail of knitting, but by the time you've worked through it, you know how to do research. So if you want to tackle something new or learn a new skill, then you know how to research and learn that new thing. Besides just going on YouTube and finding a YouTube video, how to use different websites or books, or start buying books for your bookshelf so you'll have references on hand. So anyway, so it would tell you, so all of your swatches has these swatch information sheets, and along with those references and the yarn and needles, sometimes it will ask you to explain how to do a certain thing. Like I'm pretty sure in the first level, or in the second, I think the first, you have to explain how to work a make one right and a make one left in like steps, and it has to be clear and well written, and somebody should be able to read it and follow along to execute that type of increase. So I think that's mostly all you'll find on a swatch information sheet. So every one of your 19 swatches will have one of those pages. And then your projects or your patterns also, some of the swatches, you write the patterns in level 3. There's some in level 2. So instead of a swatch information sheet, you're treating it like you're writing a pattern. So you can, even though it's just a swatch, it gets you used to the things that you would include in a pattern, like your gauge information, your materials list, charts, things like that. So some of these swatches, instead of a swatch information sheet, has like a pattern that you would write to go along with it. And then of course your final 2 projects have patterns. So I only have 4 swatches to resubmit, but I have, let me see, how many was it? 7 swatch information sheets or the patterns for those swatches. I have 7 of those I have to redo. I don't have to resubmit every single swatch with those information sheets. It's more like small details. Well, like I do have to resubmit my very first swatch. It's a tubular cast on and bind off. And I didn't explain it very well, so I have to reword it and think about how the wording should be. And I also have to resubmit that swatch. I did not do a very good job according to the reviewers on this, and I can see where I didn't do good. So I will be redoing that swatch and its information sheet. So I was really happy that I only have the 4 swatches. That's the biggest part, is you really don't want to have a ton of things that you've messed up and have to reknit. But the written stuff I do, I've got 7 of the swatch information sheet patterns. Both of my project patterns, I have things I need to fix on the patterns for those, and a couple of questions. I think every level has about 20 or so questions that you have to answer, and I had 2 of those that I have to sort of think out more clearly and write a bit more about those 2. So I am very glad that all I have is 4. So the 4 I have that I have to redo, I'm not going to show you every single swatch because there's a lot, is my the very first one, which is about cast on, the tubular cast on and bind off. Not so much for your swatch in the middle, it's mostly for the cast on and the bind off. I've got to redo that. And let me see, swatch 3. This one was about twisted decreases, worked full fashioned, which I'm fine on. The actual swatch itself was fine. I just have to redo my bind off. I can't remember. Oh, I think I used a cable cast on and I used the sewn bind off, and my sewn bind off is not very well done. So I have to redo that. Or I can choose another bind off. These first few swatches, they have different increases and decreases that you're using for the swatch, but then you get to choose your cast on, your bind offs that you want to demonstrate. Basically, the level 3 is really all about sort of showing off your skills. So you want to demonstrate different cast on and bind off techniques. So I've got to work on my tubular and my sewn bind off, or if I wanted to, I could replace it with a different bind off. Well, my tags are stuck together. And then I have another swatch number 4, which was about the central double decrease, which was fine. It's just my cast on was okay, but my bind off is very sloppy and doesn't look nice. And it wasn't a great choice for this swatch. So what was this one? Some sort of a lace bind off, I think. And it's not very well done. I don't even remember which one it is. But so I'll need to pick a new bind off for that. I don't even have to redo the whole swatch. I just have to pick another bind off method. So I've got 2 bind offs and then my tubular bind off and cast on. So not a ton I have to do. The swatches themselves were fine. I just have to, oh no, number 4. I misread my thing here. I have some notes here to follow along. My tension's bad too on this one, they say, and it really is. I don't know why I didn't redo this one, but I've got lots of gutters over here and it's hard to show up on the camera, I think, because the white doesn't show up very well. But yeah, so this whole swatch has to be redone. And the biggie that I messed up a lot, I had a lot of mistakes. They mark your mistakes, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different marks on like different threads on this one, marking all of my mistakes. So this is intarsia. And I think my problem here was, like, you create your own intarsia design and they want you to have vertical, horizontal, and what's the other one? Diagonal. Different ways of working things. I think I haven't read my instructions. So I think my mistake here was I went a little too crazy in the design. Like, I should have kept it really simple. And I mean, this is fairly simple, but there's a lot going on in this one row. I've got a lot of different colors because every section across the row has its own color. So there would have been that cream, this pink, this purple, this pink, a bit of cream here. Yeah, this yellow, like that. It's a lot of color changes in one row. So I think I'm going to simplify it this time and resubmit something a lot easier. But I'm actually surprised. There were a couple swatches I was iffy on. I don't know, I wasn't sure they would pass, and they passed just fine. They even had some compliments. So you don't really know sometimes the things they're looking for compared to what you're seeing, but obvious things, like if you can tell your tension's really bad. Like, I know my tension's not great on this swatch. I don't know why I sent that in. I should have redone that. I should have seen that myself. But yeah, my Intarsia, no, I was like, I did that. I'm done. I didn't want to look at it again, but so I'm going to have to do that one again. So not too bad. Some cast-ons and bind-offs, one swatch, and then that Intarsia swatch. Nothing too terrible. And then some writing I have to fix on my swatch information sheet. So I'm actually very, very relieved. I was really nervous that I was hoping my sweater would be okay. I wasn't too concerned about that, but I was concerned about my hat because I've worked a lot on my stranded color work, and it's improved a lot, but I can tell where I do the color changes at the beginning of round and weaving in my ends, doing that really neatly so you don't see too much of it. I still struggle with that. I was really careful with that, and they did point out a lot of the mistakes, but it passed in the end. There wasn't enough wrong with it. I don't know what the guidelines are, if you have to have like so many things wrong and then they say, okay, you've got to resubmit this. But it was good enough that it passed. So I'm really glad about that. So I just have these 4 things to resubmit, and hopefully I won't have to resubmit. I had to do that for level 1 and level 2. I'll just like mail these in an envelope and a small binder or whatever, what I have to send. And then I'll hear back, and then if there's anything I have to redo again, we shall see. Hopefully not. But then in that case, it's usually like one thing and you put it in like a single envelope. So that's not such a big deal. But fingers crossed, I will be finished and passed by the end of this year, and I'll officially be a master hand knitter. So that will be kind of neat. Not that, I mean, it matters to anybody else but me, but it's a big achievement. It's a lot of work. It's like a college course, I think, when you do all of this. But I'm very happy that I just don't have that much to do. So I am going to be taking a break from recording after this podcast episode airs. I'm going to take a few weeks off in August, and that's probably what I'm going to be working on, is my master hand knitting stuff, so I can get that finished and sent back in the mail and officially be done with that. And then I don't know what we'll do after that. I'm working on the design course still, and then we shall see what is next. But for now, I'm happy that that's finished. Now, one more thing before we get to our knitting is talking about books I love to read, and I want to include that here because I know a lot of other knitters like to listen to audiobooks or read as well. And I love it when you leave recommendations, and the book I want to talk about today was a recommendation from I don't even know how long ago, and I can't remember who left the comment, but thank you so much for recommending An Irish Country Doctor by Patrick Taylor. Whoever you were that recommended that, thank you so much, because it really is a great book. If you've ever read James Herriot's books, The All Creatures Great and Small, or he's got a whole series of them, even a kid's one that we used to have. I think I might still have it somewhere because I really like the pictures in it. If you've ever read any of those, or if you've watched the new version of All Creatures Great and Small, or there's an old version as well, I like both of them. I haven't watched the latest season of All Creatures Great and Small. I have to catch up on that one. But if you like that style, that's about a vet in the Yorkshire Dales in the 1940s, I think. I can't remember. But this is very similar. But instead of a vet, it's a general practitioner, a doctor in a small village in Ireland in the 1960s. But quirky town, Ballybucklebow or something like that, I can't remember now. Fictional town in Northern Ireland in the 1960s. And he's a general practitioner. He's brand new. He's just graduated from college, and he is working with an older doctor in that town, sort of his apprentice, and gaining some experience. But it's very similar. If you like that quirky small town, interesting characters, sweet stories, this is probably something that you would enjoy as well. And I got the ebook to read, and I'm going to try to get the audiobook for the next one. I'm hoping that they've got because all I can picture is like a nice Irish accent narrating this book for me. So that's there's a series of books. I'm not sure how many there are in the series, but when I finish reading this first one, the next one, I think I'm going to see if I can get an audiobook version and listen to it while I knit instead, because it's one of those books where you can almost tell that the narrating would be really, really nice, and that beautiful Irish accent, I think that would be lovely to listen to. And very sweet story. One caveat though, there is some swearing, not a lot, but there is some. If you like to avoid anything like that, then you might not like this one, but there is not a ton of it. There's some, but it's not a lot. Well, we've chatted enough. I think it's time to actually talk about knitting. And first we'll tackle what's off my needles. And the first thing would be this top. If you've watched past episodes, you know that I reclaimed the yarn from another sweater. This is a hemp and cotton yarn, Patons Hempster. I'm not sure it was actually meant for garments, but I was able to get a lot of it really cheaply, so I thought I would try. The first sweater I knit with it was a top-down raglan, very open neckline, seamless, and great pattern. Buttercup, I think, by Heidi Kiermaier. I'll put a link down below if I remember to. Great pattern. It's free, but the yarn was not right for that pattern. Because it's seamless, knit in the round, you want something that's going to hold its shape. And hemp and cotton, they don't do that. They get very heavy and they tend to stretch out. And there's no seams to give it some structure. So it didn't work at all. The open neckline just kept growing and growing and growing, and I couldn't wear it because it was stretching out way too much. So I reclaimed all of that yarn, have a video about that as well, and used it to knit Sayer by Julie Hoover for Purl Soho. This is just a basic A-line tank top or sleeveless top, whatever you want to call it. And it's reversible. The back has like a crew neck. I like the V-neck side, so I'm choosing to wear that. But this one does have seams. It was just knit front and back, and then you sew it together at the shoulders and the side seams. So those seams give it enough structure. And even with that, I can tell that it's stretched out. I can tell, like in the neckline, that it's deeper than it was when I knit it. But those seams will keep it from growing too much, thankfully. So it's a nice lightweight summer top, easy to care for, so I was really happy to have something new for my summer wardrobe. I like summer knits. When you knit in a lightweight cotton, well, cotton is heavier than wool, but its softness, and if you get like a chainette yarn, it just feels really light in the summer, like Pima cotton tops or linen tops, and they're usually really easy to care for. You can, most of the time, just throw them in the wash. I still do it on a gentle cycle. So for the summer, I really love my hand knits. Even then, I don't wear just hand knits in the winter. I wear them in the summer as well. So. And also off my needles is my daughter's cardigan behind me. It has its buttons now. It's still waiting for pockets. Hopefully I will get to those this week. I have one all marked out. She tried it on and decided exactly where she wants her pockets. So I've got it marked out. I just have to knit them on. I've got a few different options that I've been thinking about. One is like simple, like to just knit them the size you want them and then sew them on. But I think I'm going to like pick up stitches and knit it right onto the sweater. I think that's the one I've settled on. So I'll probably do that. It's been too nice to sit in the house though, and I need like good light and have it at my desk to do that. And the weather's been great, so I've been outside a lot and I need easy portable knitting, so I haven't done the pockets on that yet, but it is finished. The buttons are on there. That took me an afternoon between that and her vest. I spent an afternoon sewing the buttons on the cardigan and this vest, which is also finished. It came out really nice. It fits her really well. I was concerned bust-wise that it would be too narrow, but it fits really good. And it's a really cute vest. So that's all done. Both of these are done with Knit Picks. They're Brava sport weight yarn. I still have a whole skein and most of another skein left. So I have no idea what I'll do with those, but they will go in the use up pile for something, I'm sure. So that's another thing that is finished. This was a drops pattern. It's the first time I've ever knit a drops pattern. And I would not suggest them for new knitters because they can be confusing. The wording can be odd. And well, like the left and right front, you do the left front and then it tells you, so it tells you to just do the right front like the left, reversing the shaping and adding buttonholes. That's all it says for the right front. So you have to be willing to figure all that stuff out. with their patterns, but they're free. And I really like how it came out, and it wasn't that difficult to do. You start with the back, which you've got your very simple pattern. It's mostly stockinette with like a ridge, a garter ridge in there. And you got some shaping along the side. So by the time you get that figured out, doing the left front is pretty easy, but it integrates the button band at the same time. So you've got that going on at the same time. Then you get to the right and you've got to do all of that, but reverse it, plus add the buttonholes. So it was a lot, but it came out nice, and I really liked the pattern. I liked that there wasn't anything to do, like all of the armhole edging, the buttonhole edging, all of it is integrated as you go, nothing to pick up and do. So all I had to do was like sew on some buttons and weave in my ends. So that's all finished as well. And then in an effort to clean out some of like the yarn stash I have, I don't really keep yarn in the stash, but I had a bag of yarn given to me, so I was using it up for different things, and had some old yarn in there. This is Patons Beehive Aran, which is a acrylic wool blend, kind of on the scratchy side. So I just used it all to knit like this big cowl. I held it double, knit this giant cowl, and I'm hoping when it's stretched out, it won't be like so hug your neck style. And then I've got like a couple pom-poms I made, so I'll put those on a cord and tie them through. It's not an original pattern. I saw it. It's a Churchmouse yarn pattern, but it's not available anymore. But it's such a simple project. I really didn't need the pattern to figure it out. I mean, it's just a 2x2 cowl knit with bulky yarn or yarn held double, and then the pom-poms. So that is almost done. I still have to weave in the ends and then get the cord made and put the pom-poms on, but it's almost finished. And I always like to have something in my purse when I'm out and about. And for the past few years, it's been knitted knockers. And I'm kind of tired of knitting them, and I've got quite a stash. I haven't been able to get to the local yarn shop recently, so they've just been sort of piling up. Over the past couple years, actually, I've just been sort of throwing them in a bag and leaving them in a corner. Well, one night I finally sat down and got all the ends woven in and got them paired up. So I've got piles. I don't even know how many. I just like put them all in a bag here, but there's a ton of them. I don't stuff them because it costs more money if you send them stuffed, but you can mail them directly to the organization, or like if you can find out if your local yarn shop is a drop off point, and there is one near, well, not near where I live, but one of the yarn shops here does collect them. So I will just take them there and drop them all off. So I feel like I'm sort of clearing the decks for new things for the winter. So it's clearing out like yarn that was given to me with that cowl, and finishing up my daughter's projects and just getting stuff cleared out. I don't know, it feels like that type of season for me right now, just to refresh and clean things out so I can, I don't know, get more yarn and knit more things. But anyway, this is another thing that's finally finished. I do have one that's sort of, it's done, but it doesn't have a pair yet, and I don't have enough yarn, so I'm just going to sort of set that aside for now. And then in the future, when I want to have something different to knit when I'm out and about, then I might get back to these. But I've knit a lot of them, so it's time for something else, and that has been dishcloths recently that I've used for my out and about knitting. This year for Christmas gifts, I like to give something small to like the different families at church. Our church is very small, just a few families. So I sometimes make cinnamon rolls. It's usually what I've done in the past. But I thought this year it would be nice to do something else. So I'm making lots of dishcloths, and then I'll probably pair like 2 or 3 of them with a pretty jar for a hand soap or a nice bar of soap or something like that anyway. So I have been knitting lots of the round dishcloths. I have this pattern memorized, so it's very quick to do them, and I just have to seam them up. I've got a couple more here that I have to do. Then I started a new very simple lace pattern with some garter stitch on the edges. So, and these are all using either Knit Picks Dishie, which is this, I know that this is definitely Dishie, this dark purple. I really like this color. Or like the Bernat Handicrafter. I think that's what this pink is. I'm doing another lace one. So I've got, like everybody else, you probably have a stash of patterns. And I've got like a stash of dishcloth patterns I've never knit. So I'm just going through different ones. And if I want something I really don't have to think about, I just cast on a round dishcloth, because I just have, that one's just in my head. And I probably will do some more like tip to tip ones eventually. But When I do want to think a little bit, then these lace ones are very simple. I'll try to put a link down below for them. It's a Knit Picks pattern. I'm not sure if it's still available or not. Really easy to do. Nice little pattern. So this is my on-the-go knitting right now as well. I'm not like in a rush to get them all done, but on the go, or if I'm like right now, I'm in between. I don't have anything like design wise or for one of my courses, of nothing I'm actually working on. So in the evening, like they're sort of just mindless knitflixing, I guess. That's what they have been for me right now. So I do have quite a few of them done, but this is more when I'm out and about. I grabbed a whole bunch of my dishcloth yarn in different colors and shoved them in my little bag with my double pointed needles. And I bought new needles actually, because I had been using, I think they're Knit Pro or Knitter's Pride. Aren't they the same company? Double pointed needles, Zings, I think they're called. They're metal, really slick. I really like them, but I knit in church a lot, and we have like this hard linoleum on the floor, and I'm so scared that I'm going to drop one of those needles and it's going to be loud if it falls. So when I was at our local fabric store, they have a little knitting section. I forgot they had Knit Pick stuff in there. So I went back in the other day and I'd gotten some larger needles, and I went back to get the size that I use for a lot of my dishcloths. It's worsted weight, so I just buy like a US 7, I think. So I went and picked up some Knit Picks. They're wooden knitting needles, because I figure if I drop one of these in church, it's not going to be as loud as one of those metal needles. So I bought new needles. And I have pulled out my father-in-law's fingerless gloves. He wanted some convertible mitts. I knit some for him a couple years ago, but I didn't make the top long enough, so there's a gap between like where the convertible top fits and the mitt ends, so it would gap open, and you don't want that in the winter. So I'm reknitting him a new pair. I'm using Jamieson & Smith. They're jumper or 2-ply, jumper weight, really woolly yarn. It'll be nice for mittens, I think. So I've got the mitts. The mitts have been done for a while. I did the closed thumb. They're nice and long, tubular cast on and bind off. So I've been practicing that, which is nice. So when I get back to my master hand knitting, I'll have had some more practice with it, and hopefully, I think it looks good on these. So hopefully I've improved. So I've gotten one top done for this mitten. So I think it sits pretty nicely. It stays in place. I haven't put a button or a snap. I'll ask him if he wants one. If he doesn't, I'll just leave it like that, because I think they just lay pretty flat. And then you just fold it over, and it's got a basic sort of like the top. It's got like a sock toe. I decreased and then did the Kitchener graft along there. But I sat down and I was thinking about how to attach the top. There are lots of ways to do that, the convertible top. You can start here, do like a short row, like a toe, and then work it down, and then do the whole top and then attach it to the back. I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to attach it right away. So that was my choice. I decided to pick up stitches along the back, cast on stitches for this side that's not attached, and then just work it in the round. So, because I had done the tubular cast on and bind off on the mitten, I wanted to do that on this as well, so it would match. I didn't want to use a different cast on. So what I ended up doing is working the cast on first and getting that tubular edge finished. And then I picked up the stitches across the back and then joined in the round and did a bit of ribbing. I like the ribbing on there because it helps it sucks in it a little and keeps it on the hand and over the fingers. Then I just worked in stockinette for enough, so until I had like about an inch for the finger left. And then I started the decreases along both sides like you would for a toe on a sock top down. And it's basically the same idea. So I've got one worked out. So I'm going to record the second one so I can show you how it's done. Because what I'm thinking is you can add these convertible tops to any fingerless mitt pattern as long as you know how to do it. Once you have the method figured out, how to like do your cast on, pick up your stitches, join in the round. The biggest issue is like how many stitches, and even that's not a huge thing to figure out. And then how you want to shape the top. Like I did that toe shaping because I figured he'd want lots of room in there. My other option I was thinking about was just doing like a gathered top like you'd often see for a mitten or the top of a hat. But I thought that would like pinch it in a little more at the top, and I wanted it to have a lot of room in the fingers because he uses them when he's like shoveling and doing chores outside. But the method is very simple. So you could take any fingerless mitt, and this is just one I designed on my own following like some basic instructions using my own gauge, and then take that and add a mitten top to it. So I'm going to, when it's a rainy day, because it's just too nice to be inside right now recording like I am right now. It's very nice out. So once I'm done here, I am going to be grabbing probably my dishcloths because that's like the easy knitting, and just take them and go sit outside in the backyard in the sun. I've been getting a lot of sun, but it feels really nice. I think because, well, I'm in Canada and it's cold a lot of the time. And I like to feel warm all the way through. So my husband and my daughter both like to keep cool. We've got the air conditioners on, not right now. When my husband's not home, the windows open, the air conditioners are off. But once he gets home, windows will be shut and the air will be back on. So I go outside and enjoy the warmth while I can in the summertime. But anyway, so yes, I will be recording that, but it's going to wait for a rainy day because I want to be outside enjoying the sun. And I have finished another project as well. This is a new design. It will be coming out in October. It's finished. It hasn't been blocked yet because I just finished it last night. This uses Malabrigo yarn. They're Meisha. It's bulky, a bulky weight yarn. This color name is Paysandu. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's a lovely, like a bulky, very soft superwash merino. It's a single ply. It's really, really like sort of just plush. I don't know. It's hard to describe. Just really very nice. Feels nice on the hands. And this one, it's a variegated yarn. It's a very simple slip stitch pattern. I have designed a cowl in this. It's free. It's available on Dishie. I'll put a link down below. But I'm going to be releasing a companion hat. So you can have a hat and a cowl. Uses the same mistake stitch rib and this really pretty slip stitch pattern. And then a gathered top up here for the crown. And I am going to have a tutorial for this. So it'll be a paid pattern and a full video tutorial that walks you through everything from casting on right to the bind off. So if you've never knit a hat before, this pattern is simple enough that even new hat knitters could do it. It's definitely that easy. It's so soft. I really like this yarn. So it'll come in 3 sizes. So like a small, medium, and large size. This is the medium size. So it's a fitted beanie. It's a bit loose on the top, on the head, but let me see. I can't remember the dimensions. My head's a 22-inch and the medium is sort of, it fits, but it's sort of loose around the forehead and the crown. So, which is how I like my hats. I don't like them tight on my head, but it's very soft. I can't stop touching it. So that's all finished. That will be coming out in October, full video tutorial and everything with Malabrigo yarn. Then I have 3 projects that are coming up. I haven't got them on my needles yet. The first is going to be some socks. We're going to do some sock knitting tutorials, all the different methods. We're going to start with the most basic, which is just knitting cuff down, cuff to toe on double pointed needles. So it will be a tutorial that walks you through and a pattern that walks you through how to work a basic heel flap and gusset, the whole toe and the whole sock construction on double pointed needles. And then I'm not sure, maybe we'll do magic loop next. I don't know. I've got a whole list of ways they can be knit. So each one will also have a pattern, but I mean, the instructions are sort of, you can use them with any pattern once you, well, as long as it is the same type of construction, toe, cuff to toe, heel flap and gusset. As long as it's similar, then it should be okay. But I will have a pattern. I'm hoping now that I've learned how to grade patterns, I'm going to have it graded across a variety of sizes. I'm not sure how many yet. So it won't be a free pattern because I'm doing all of that grading. If I did it like in one size, then I would probably just do it for free. But it takes a lot of work to figure out all the sizes. Plus it's a full video tutorial. So it will be a paid pattern, but it will be lots of different sizes and walk you through this whole method for this type of sock. And I'm not sure how to work it out because I am going to do more tutorials with all the other methods like using magic loop and all of that. So I think I don't know if I should write separate patterns for each one, or what do you think? I'd like some input on those who'd like to learn how to knit socks, but they're not sure about which method they would like. So for me personally, I wanted to know which method I would like, so I tried lots of different ones. The only ones I haven't really spent a lot of time doing is like the 2 circulars method, and that's because I'm too cheap to buy the same 2 needles. So I need to buy a second size. I can't remember what size, 2.25 I use for socks, so I need to buy a second one so I can give that one a try. But all the other methods, I've tried most of them and I like them all. Depends on the socks I'm knitting, I guess. If I'm knitting like a short row heel, I like magic loop. I just think they're easy on that, and even 2 at a time on magic loop, but that one, it's a lot of yarn management. But it's the patterns I'm trying to decide if I should have a separate pattern for each tutorial, if I should have sort of just bundle them all together. So I don't know, got to think about that. I would like your feedback if you know, or if you've thought about how you think that should work, then I would love your feedback on that. And then I also have, it was my birthday recently, so I asked for money for gifts because I knew I wanted to knit a new like cardigan for the winter. So when my in-laws, they like to get a card or something like that, and so when they ask what I want, I'm like, just cash so I can buy yarn. And my husband was the same. I said, just give me some money so I can buy yarn. And I spent some time looking at patterns, and I had in mind, I wanted like that winter sort of cozy up at home cardigan, but I didn't want it to be super bulky because I was thinking about, one of those ones, it's basically just a big rectangle and you sew the sides together and it's like a big shrug. But I didn't really want, that wasn't quite what I wanted, but I didn't want anything super fitted either, but something I could cozy up in. So I was looking at different patterns and I had narrowed down to a few, and then I found one by Suzanne Sommer, and I'm like, oh, that's perfect. That's really what it's not what I was looking for, but now that I see it, it's what I want. It's basically, I'll put a picture here. It's basically a triangle shawl with sleeves, but it's just one of those things that it just looks so cozy to me. So that I've already purchased the pattern, and I spent some time looking at yarn and deciding what to get for yarn. I looked at a few local places here, but they didn't really have the colors that I wanted. I wanted to splurge out a little bit. I don't have a ton of money to spend on this, but it is my birthday gift, so I wanted to splurge a little. And I kept looking at yarns that were like blues and purples, and then I'm thinking it's going to be the middle of winter when I wear this, and I want something that will cheer me up. So I went right out of my comfort zone and I got orange. I think I have one orange top that I do wear in the summer sometimes. So I ended up getting, I think it's Stroll Tonal. It's Stroll Tonal yarn. So it's from Knit Picks, and the colorway is called Guppy. So it's this really pretty bright orange. So I think though for winter when it's cold, and it'll just be nice to see something so bright. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I've put so much thought into the colors. So the shawl cardigan thing uses 2 colors. It's sort of brioche and 2-color brioche and garter stitch. But you have like that background color, which is your bold dark color, and then you have a lighter color from the front. So I looked through some different Knit Picks yarns to go along with it, and I settled on the Hawthorne Kettle Dye Daphne. Now I didn't originally, I knew I wanted the Guppy yarn. I wanted something, the orange, and I hadn't chosen my second color. So I was scrolling through the projects on Ravelry, and I ran across one, and she used Guppy. So I'm like, okay, well, what color did she use with it? And so that's how I chose the second color. And I loved with her trim, she had done a bright yellow trim along the shawl edge. It ends with like this little bit of I-cord in like a contrast color. So I liked that bright yellow on there. So I grabbed a skein of just the Stroll sock yarn basically in there bright. It's Dandelion is the color. I think I have some of it here because I've knit socks with it before. So I got that. It's sort of like for the I-cord edge. But so I splurged a bit because it's Knit Picks, so it's not like super, super expensive, but it's like the hand-dyed, sort of yarns. So the colors are not, like this solid stroll color. I did use that for the I-cord edge, but so it's a bit splurgy, but not like really splash out a lot of money kind of splurge. But still, I mean, for me, it was spending quite a bit for one project, but it's my birthday gift, so I'm looking forward to that. The yarn still hasn't shipped. I just ordered it, but it's still processing. But I'm guessing because it was their big summer sale recently, so they probably have a lot of orders that came in at the very end, so they're processing all of those. So I have no idea how big their warehouse is and how long that will take, but hopefully soon so I can get started on that project. That's all that's on my needles right now, but I like to talk about a few knitting books before we wrap up. And this week I've got 2 shawl books. We've been talking about shawls. Well, this month we've been talking about blocking, and then talking about the shawls that you like to knit, your favorite shawls. And that was a great video. You left so many great comments, and there's even more comments. I think we're going to have to do a follow-up video with more shawl recommendations. So then we had sort of a knit and chat to talk about shawls, like the different mistakes you can make and how to block shawls, and just sort of tips about shawl knitting, and then also some books about custom shawls. And I had ordered a bunch of books from the library about shawls, and I only shared a few of them in that episode or in that video, but I pulled out 2 more to share today for those who like to knit shawls. Now the first one is Melanie Berg. I don't know if she has her own website or if she's just on Ravelry and Lovecrafts, but you can find some of these, I think, are available individually, but this is a collection of some of her popular designs and lots of different shawl shapes. Of course, she does like asymmetrical triangles a lot, but she's got some rectangles in here and some crescents, different shapes, and she always does like really great things with slip stitches and mosaics, and there's lots of texture. And this one is actually a bilingual book. It's in English and in German as well, because she's German. And I just love her design aesthetic. She's got some really pretty shawls. This one on the cover is really nice. But I think there's about 20, I can't remember now, shawl patterns in here. So if you like to knit shawls and you really like Melanie Berg's style, then this is probably a cost-effective way to knit lots of shawls. And the second pick is Stephen West. This is his West Knits Best Knits. This is volume 3. He's got a bunch of these like shawl books. I think I've seen one of them before. I can't remember now. But this one in particular, well, you can see some of them on the back. They have fun, I think, like doing the photo shoots with these. They're very artistic and out of the box style. And he plays with color in such great ways. But so he's got lots of shawls in here. But what I really liked about this one is he talks about like the design process and how he comes up with the different stitches and how one shawl is the creative inspiration for another shawl. But even though they look totally different, one was like his inspiration for the next. And then he's got some information like and tips on fading and how to fade, which, you know, fading is really just making stripes. Really, but it's all about the colors you choose and how you work them to go from one color to another. So he's got information about that, and he's got a good section on like marling colors where you hold 2 colors together and how to like go transition from color to color. Some good information about that in here. Just, I like it because I'm always fascinated by how he constructs his shawls, because he doesn't stick to like top down triangle. I mean, he's got one of those, you know, but he takes that and then he like, let's add some short rows over here. What can we do? You know, like he just adds these other things to it. And I'm fascinated by how he comes up with that, like that thought process behind like changing that construction. So for that, to see like a little peek into his design mind, they're interesting to read. I do have a few in here that I would like to knit. I just think they're very, very pretty, and depending on the colors, he goes wild with his colors. I'm not sure I'm quite ready to be that wild with mine, but a really great book to see like sort of his design process, and I'd like to see more in this series. This is number 3, so he's got others as well. So that's it for this episode of the podcast. Like I said earlier, I'm going to be taking a bit of a break for the next few weeks, so I will see you at the end of August at our next knitting podcast. Until then, have a good summer, and if you want to watch more episodes in between, then I'll put a playlist right here and you can catch up on some of the past episodes, and I'll see you in the next video.